I think that the Bible is meant to be taken literally. And a lot of people who do end time Bible studies believe that too. So when we read Revelation and we see there's 1,260 days that the woman flees into the wilderness, most people will assume that it's 1,260 literal days. Most people are also familiar with the idea that the events in Revelation take place in a certain order. So for example, you have to have the 24 elders in heaven before Jesus takes the scroll, which has the 7 seals, before Jesus can open the scroll. Okay, now that all seems very logical, right? And people who interpret the Bible, people who are looking at Revelation will say, yes, that seems to be the order. You have 24 elders, you have Jesus taking the scroll, you have the seals being opened, and it's in that order. So we're familiar with the idea of days being days, time being literal, and the second thing is that there are events that take place in a certain order. These are just examples of what I call timing clues. They're timing indicators, either timed by the number of days that something happens or timed by a series of events that have to happen in a certain order. So things happening in a certain order is kind of a timing clue, and day counts, is a timing clue as well. Now, Revelation is actually full of timing clues. In fact, it's taken me about 5 years, from 2017 to 2022, which is when I'm doing this video, to actually find all the timing clues. Well, the ones that I've found so far. There may be some other ones that I don't know about that I have yet to discover. In any case, it's taken me 5 years to do this, and I'm going to give you in just a few minutes here what's taken me 5 years to do. I'm not going to give you every single timing clue that I found in the book of Revelation, but I want to give you enough so that you can sort of wrap your mind around the idea that viewing Revelation as being primarily chronological isn't going to work when you want to come up with a timeline. There are things that have to happen before other things happen, and there are days, an amount of time, days and months and so on, that are attached to certain events. The timeline in Revelation is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It gives us every single thing that we need to know. There are people who say Revelation's been tampered with. It hasn't. Every single event can be accounted for on a timeline. All of them. So the timeline in Revelation is complete. It's perfect. We'll know the exact order that things are going to happen in and approximately when they're going to take place. And what we have in the book of Revelation is a template. We have the exact order in which things will take place, and we have day counts associated with certain events, and the ones that we don't have day counts for, we can actually look at different events and be able to line things up and sort of extrapolate from there. So I have some basic assumptions that I'm operating from in my interpretation of Revelation. Now, a lot of people will have different assumptions, and they're welcome to them. These are mine, and none of them are extraordinary, none of them are new, and none of them are unreasonable. Okay? So the first assumption I'm making is that the book of Revelation is a prophecy about end times. It's not history. It's not something that took place in the first century. It's prophetic of end times. And in fact, I'm going to go so far as to say the whole book is prophetic of end times. It's prophecy about groups of people who will be living during the last days and the things that are going to be happening to them. The second assumption I'm making is all units of time are literal. And I've done a whole video on this. I'll leave a link to it in the description box. The third assumption I'm making is that Revelation is not chronological. When people read Revelation, they want to treat it as though it were chronological, as though the first chapter is the first part of the story and Revelation 22 is like the end of the story. But even people who kind of believe that Revelation is written chronologically still have what they call interludes or flashbacks, because they realize that it isn't strictly chronological. And actually, it's really not chronological kind of at all. And that is not the framework that we should be coming up with a timeline from a chronological way that we actually read the book. Right? So the book requires that we actually know the whole book before we can really sort of understand where different parts of the book go. So the way I treat Revelation is it's one story being told in a series of visions. The separate little stories are each telling a bit about something. All these little stories are not in order, and part of that's because when something is happening to martyrs, for example, there's going to be something else happening as far as seals go, and there may be something else happening as far as trumpets go, and all these events are taking place at the same time, but they're not going to be communicated that way. Once you get into the book, you start to understand how the book is constructed. All right. You don't assume a construction by just starting to read the book. You actually read the book and you get very familiar with it. And then you understand how it was put together. Okay. It's sort of a, forensic sort of reverse kind of understanding. There's an example of this. In Revelation 11, we see a beast who ascends from the bottomless pit, and he kills the two witnesses. Now, everybody realizes, or they teach anyway, that it's the beast who kills the two witnesses. The beast who ascends from the bottomless pit is equated with the beast from the sea. Okay, that is the beast who is going to have a number and a mark and all of this and that. But the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit is telling us something about timing here. The pit doesn't open until the fifth trumpet. So what this is telling us is that when the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit shows up, we know that sometime prior to that the fifth trumpet, which is the first woe, had to take place, because nothing can come out of the pit until the pit is opened. That's when the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit comes out. And that's Apollyon who comes out. And it's this individual who kills the two witnesses. He's also the beast from the sea. Okay, so the bottomless pit, the sea, we got some interesting things happening there. The beast who rises from the sea is not until Revelation 13. So we can see it. Revelation 11 and Revelation 13 are going to layer over one another. And Revelation 11, that tells us that it's the beast who rises from the bottomless pit, who comes out and kills the two witnesses. We know that has to happen after the fifth trumpet. So this is kind of how that would look then. So we've got the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit, okay, the beast from the pit. That means the pit is open. Okay, so sometime back here, we had to have trumpets 1 through 5 before the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit can kill the two witnesses. All right. And we know that the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit is equated with the beast from the sea. It's the beast from the sea that's going to rule for 42 months. Over here, we learn that the holy city will be trampled for 42 months. Okay, so we have some connections here, and we have connections here. The book of Revelation is showing us that there are connections between chapters and connections between the different visions. And every vision is going to give us a little piece of information that's going to help connect us to another vision that has even more information in it. All right? So what we got here from Revelation 11, the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit, killing the two witnesses, we realize that trumpets 1 through 5 have to happen before this takes place. And what that does for us is, from other places, we know that it's at the time of the abomination of desolation that the beast will begin to reign for 42 months. What that means then is that trumpets 1 through 5 have to take place before the abomination of desolation. This is the logic of it. Okay, I'm showing you the logic of it. You can't have the trumpets 1 through 5 taking place after the abomination of desolation. Okay, so this is kind of how we make some of these connections. Okay, there's another example of this. In Revelation 13, we're told about how the beast will begin to reign. He's going to conquer the saints, and this calls for the endurance of the saints. Okay? The endurance of the saints. That's in Revelation 13. In Revelation 14, right after those three angels are proclaiming, worship God only and give him glory, Babylon has fallen, don't take the mark of the beast. What they're told is, blessed are those who keep the commandments of God and have the endurance of the saints. Okay, so again, we have endurance. But the story of the endurance of the saints is in conjunction with those three angels. We know that the endurance of the saints is being talked about here in Revelation 14, but it probably refers back to this same endurance of the saints, which will take place at the time of the abomination of desolation, which sort of makes these three angels doing their don't take the mark of the beast, Babylon has fallen, and worship God only, back here to this event that we know of as the abomination. But in Revelation, it's the sixth trumpet. Trumpets 1 through 5, sixth trumpet right here. Okay, so anyway, this is just an example of making connections. Here it's between a beast. Okay, here it's the endurance of the saints. And because we know that the saints need to endure during the reign of the beast, we know that they have to endure by not taking the mark of the beast or worshiping the image of the beast and so on. And the three angels have just told us that their people are to worship God only and give him glory, that Babylon has fallen, and don't take the mark of the beast. Okay, so the warning against taking the mark of the beast will have to be at the beginning here at the 42 months. And these are all in order, which tells us that these people are to worship God, give him glory, that Babylon has fallen, and don't take the mark of the beast. All right. There are other ways that these passages dovetail with one another. For example, at the time when the two witnesses ascend, which will be right here again, this is in chapter 11. They're told to come up hither. There is a great earthquake, and a tenth of the city falls. 7,000 people are killed in the earthquake, and the rest were terrified and gave glory to the God of heaven. And it's at that moment that the second woe is passed. Okay? The second woe is connected with the sixth trumpet. Okay, so these are just logic things. We're just using what we read and logically connecting things that happen before or at the same time or after certain other events. All right, so back to my assumptions again. The fourth assumption is that Revelation is going to use symbols and imagery to tell the story, and we know that that's true. You can't read the book without realizing that we're using symbols. For instance, the dragon is Satan. Okay, the dragon is not a planet. The dragon is Satan. And the accuser of the brethren, the devil, that ancient serpent, okay, that's who the dragon is. We know that the lamb is Christ. We're not talking about a baby sheep. The 24 elders they're kings and priests. They are leaders. They are ones who are going to inherit. They're going to rule and reign with Christ, and they're going to assist Christ. They're associated with the millennial reign by the number 24. 24 is used as its own number. It's not 12 plus 12 or 12 times 2. 24 is a number that's used in conjunction with the millennial reign of Christ, with Solomon's temple in 1 Chronicles chapters 24 and following. Okay, that's where the number 24 is used many, many, many times. It's about the millennial reign of Christ and those who are going to assist Christ in his administration. Okay, so the symbols and imagery are what tell the story. Revelation uses both Old and New Testament references to flesh out these symbols and images. So you have characters like Balaam, for example. Balaam's found in the book of Numbers. Characteristics and attributes of Balaam then that we find in the letters to the 7 churches. So we would have to go back to that story of Balaam to understand what Balaam means in the context of the church of Pergamum. I assume that when you get a numbered series or sequence of events, that the events are going to happen in the order in which they're given. So 7 seals, seal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, they're going to happen in that order. Trumpets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in that order. We're not going to have trumpet 7 before trumpet 4. They're going to happen in a sequence. There is also the possibility of more than one event taking place on a certain day. Okay, 6th trumpet is the second woe. Second woe is when there's an earthquake, and so on. It's when the 2 witnesses ascend into heaven. It's when people give God glory. It's when the angels, 3 angels, tell their stories about worshiping God and giving him glory. Babylon has fallen, and don't take the mark of the beast. Okay, all that right here. All overlapping at the same time. If you do a strictly chronological understanding of Revelation, you're not going to have any overlapping events. But Revelation is full of overlapping events. It's full of them. It's like chock full of overlapping events that are connected with things that are going to happen on the same day. Okay, the 6th trumpet, the same time as the abomination of desolation, according to Matthew 24. That's when the woman or the remnant of Israel flees into the wilderness. Okay, and that's also in Daniel. And that's going to happen at the same time the mark of the beast takes place, same time as the 6th trumpet, the hour of trial that comes on the whole earth, same time as the second woe, the 2 witnesses ascend into heaven, and so on. This day right here is going to end up being a pivotal day. It's going to be mentioned in a whole bunch of chapters, a whole bunch of visions in Revelation. Now, here is where I really want to emphasize something. And people make a huge mistake here. People really screw up the chronology of Revelation because they don't treat Revelation as telling its own little story. Okay, it's using specific symbols and characters and so on. The book of Revelation actually is a complete story. And we don't want to import characters from another story. So, for example, Noah is not a character that's found in the book of Revelation. Lot isn't found in the book of Revelation. Now we know in Matthew 24, Noah and Lot are mentioned in a different timeline. Okay, now Matthew has its own timeline, but here's the deal. Everything in Matthew 24, all of it timeline needs to be able to mesh with what we find in Revelation. But Revelation is the book that has the whole thing, okay? And we're not going to import any ideas or any characters or anything that aren't already mentioned in the book of Revelation. So we won't take and put Noah in our Revelation timeline. We won't put Lot in there. We're not going to put Esther or Ruth or anybody like that in this timeline. So Revelation gives us the full, complete, perfect, it's absolutely perfect timeline, and we can find out what that timeline is by looking at the timing clues, when things happen before, during, after, and just syncing them up so that making the connections so that we can sort of come up with this whole unified, comprehensive series of events and how much time separates certain events from other ones and where they fit. Okay. And believe me, after 5 years of doing this, I can tell you where all this stuff fits. Everything that I see in Revelation, I know where it fits. Now, there's things that I don't know that I may still need to learn, but none of that conflicts with what I know so far, at least not that I'm aware of anyway. Once we have the Revelation timeline, we can take virtually any other timelines from other stories, so like the Matthew 24 Olivet Discourse end time scenario, and it will dovetail perfectly with Revelation. So I've already showed how that happens in my Analyzing the Intel video series on Matthew 24, where we can put the seals of Revelation, seals 1 through 6 for sure, and then the 7th one will be at the end, with this series of events that we read about in Matthew 24, and it's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And one of the problems that people have is they want to separate out our rapture from the end time Revelation story. And actually, our transformation, our going from mortal to immortal, the rapture, what happens just prior to our rapture, and there's 7 days before we're raptured, between the time when we are changed from mortal to immortal and then raptured on the 8th day. There's things that happen during that 7 days. It's all in the context of a bigger picture, and it's easier to hone in on something when you can see where it is relative to other things. You have to triangulate it in. Okay, so if you know where this is and that is and that is, you can sort of triangulate and find out actually where the rapture, where our rapture occurs in the timeline. This is where I just really wish a lot of watchmen and people who are trying to figure out, where our rapture takes place, I wish they'd look at Revelation more closely and not assume that they already know what it says and so on and so forth, because our dreams are not going to give us this order of events. Okay, our dreams are not going to do that. Even looking at the constellations and the stories that's in the stars is not going to give us the order of events. It's not. And we're actually looking in a window of time between when the Revelation 12 sign happened in 2017, which was the 70th anniversary of Israel being a nation, dating from the UN resolution in 1947, and we have Christ returning no later than 10 years later, which would be in 2027. Okay, subtract 3.5 years. That means that the abomination of desolation would have to take place in 2024. And those of you who've been following me, and even people who don't follow me, but people who understand that there's only 3.5 years for Israel left on their timeline, they only have from the abomination of desolation on, and that the first 3.5 years actually were devoted to Christ's first coming. The day that he arrived could be known by the Jews at that time, and the day that he was crucified would also be known by those people, and the day when the Holy Spirit would come on the 1335th day, according to Daniel chapter 12. But that's all in the Messiah in Daniel video series. Okay, so the last assumption I'm making is that this timeline, it's comprehensive and it encompasses the whole end time scenario, and that the timing clues, the order of events, everything that we're given provides us with a perfect timeline. It gives us a template into which we can insert dates as appropriate. Okay, I'm going to give you the order of events here. You can follow along in your Bible and you'll see the order of events of what happens here. There's an angel who says, who's worthy to take the scroll, and you see the 24 elders. They are in a group and Christ is in the middle of the group with them. Okay, then Christ gets up from the group. He's going to take the scroll. Immediately after he gets up, it says that he's the Lamb who has 7 eyes and 7 horns, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Okay, so this is not there, gratuitously or randomly. What this is telling us is that's the moment when the Spirit of God is sent out into all the earth. So the Spirit of God is going to be sent to people on the earth. Otherwise, there's no reason to say that. Okay, there's no reason to say these are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Okay, so that is what we can assume is going to be happening at that moment. And then he goes and he takes the scroll. And once he takes the scroll, then we know that the seals can be opened after that. But you can't open any seals until he has the scroll. He can't take the scroll until the Spirit has been sent out. The Spirit won't be sent out until the elders are present in heaven and Christ is seated in the midst of the elders. That's the order of events there. It talks about after he's taken the scroll, then we see the elders holding harps, and they have golden bowls of incense, which are the prayers of the saints, and then they pray for the saints. Okay, now I want you just to hold on to that. We're going to hop over to Revelation 8. What happens after these elders have these bowls of incense and they're praying for the saints? Chapter 8, verse 2. Then I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and 7 trumpets were given to them. And another angel came and stood at the altar with a golden censer. He was given much incense to mingle with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar before the throne. And the smoke of the incense rose with the prayers of the saints from the hand of the angel before God. And then the angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, threw it on the earth. There were peals of thunder, voices, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. And now the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets made ready to blow them. Okay, I want you to see here that the events of Revelation 5 are connected like right away with what we read in Revelation 8. Now, you're going to say, well, what about Revelation 6? What about Revelation 7? What about the 7th seal? And don't the trumpets come out of that 7th seal? Don't the 7 seals have to all happen before we can have the angel mingling more incense with the incense from the prayers of the saints? Well, if you believe in a chronological version of Revelation, well, then that's how you have to do it. But one of the things we need to do here is actually ignore the chapter division. Okay, they have chapter 8 starting it with the 7th seal. Okay, and that to me is like crazy. It's like, no, it shouldn't be there. So we have the seals. We have the 4 horsemen. Okay, we have the 5th seal. Those are the martyrs. We have the 6th seal. That's the sun going dark, moon to blood. People hiding because the great day of God's wrath has come. All right, that's all 6th seal. And then the 7th seal is silence in heaven. What we have here is a list. It's just a list. Every seal, seals 1 through 4, are associated with the 4 horsemen. Then we have the 5th seal, martyrs. We have the 6th seal, cosmic disturbances, people hiding because the wrath of God has come. And the 7th seal is silence in heaven for half an hour. This is just a list, but it doesn't tell us when. We don't know when. All right, so let me give you an example of this. So I may have a list that I make for myself. Get up, make breakfast, feed the dog, do the laundry, and fix dinner. I just told you the order in which I'm going to do certain events, but I haven't told you when. You don't know when. You don't know what time I get up or fix breakfast. Okay. Do I get up at 5? Do I get up at 10? You don't know when. I just told you what I'm doing, but I haven't told you when. You don't know when I eat dinner. What if I work nights? Maybe my breakfast is when I get home at midnight. Okay, I haven't told you when. I've just told you what's happening. Same thing here. We only know there are 7 seals, and we know what they are, but doesn't say when they're happening. We don't know when, okay? But there are other parts in Revelation, there's other places in Revelation that tell us when, okay, that we can know when. So here's the deal, okay? If this is just a list, but doesn't tell us when, we also know that there are 7 trumpets, and they're also a list, okay? Trumpets 1 through 4 are when the earth gets hit by these, meteors and volcanoes and bad stuff happens. It's actually when you see a third of the earth sort of being destroyed, okay? Okay, or affected in some way. The 5th, 6th, and 7th trumpets are different, okay? And that's interesting to me, because the 4 horsemen and the 4 trumpets are sort of their own little group, with these last 3 afterward, okay? The 5th trumpet is associated with the first woe, the 6th with the second woe, and the 7th trumpet is with the third woe. Revelation 11 tells us the second woe has passed. Okay, the 6th trumpet, we know, is going to take place on an hour, day, month, and year. Okay, it's 1 hour long. 1 hour on a single day. The 5th trumpet is the first woe, and that's 5 months. Okay, what about the third woe, or the 7th trumpet? When does that take place? Well, let's take a look at that. That's Revelation chapter 11. Verse 15, then the 7th angel blew his trumpet. There were loud voices in heaven. The kingdom of the world has become, past tense, has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders who sit on their thrones before God fell on their faces and worshiped God, saying, we give thanks to thee, O Lord God Almighty, who art and who wast, that thou hast taken thy great power and begun to reign. Okay, so this has to do with the beginning of the reign of Christ. Okay, that's like after the second coming. Okay, the 7th trumpet is after the second coming. The nations raged, but thy wrath came. Again, it's past tense. Thy wrath came, and the time for the dead to be judged, and for rewarding thy servants, the prophets and saints, and those who fear thy name, both small and great, and for destroying the destroyers of the earth. So this talks about judgment. It talks about rewards for resurrected believers, that there's going to be people resurrected at this time, and that this is past tense, that God's wrath has already come, and now Christ is ruling. Okay, let's see if there's any confirmation about that in Revelation. In Revelation chapter 10, we see a mighty angel who's descending from heaven, and he says there's going to be no more delay. Okay, so that tells us there's been a delay in something, and we're going to connect that word delay with something else here in just a minute. In verse 6, so this angel swears by him who lives forever and ever, who created earth and heaven and the seas and so on, that there should be no more delay, but that in the days of the trumpet call sounded by the 7th angel, the mystery of God, as announced to his servants, the prophets, should be fulfilled. So what's the mystery of God here? Okay, mystery has to do with there's a revelation. There's a revelation that has been something that has had light shine on it, something new that nobody knew about before, that there is a revelation given to God's servants, the prophets. Revelation 1:1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants those things which must soon take place. And he made it known by sending his angel to John. The mystery is the book of Revelation and the things that are going to happen. And by the time of the 7th trumpet, all the stuff that we read about is going to be over. Okay. Now, let's get back to that word delay again. This angel mentions that there's been a delay. Well, what was the delay? That's back in Revelation chapter 7. Okay, you can see how these timing clues are connecting certain things for us. So, Revelation 7:1. After this, I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth. Okay, and that's important to know here. We've got 4 angels on the earth. Okay, who are holding back the 4 winds or 4 spirits of the earth, that no wind might blow on the earth or sea or against any tree. And then I saw another angel ascending from the rising of the sun with the seal of the living God. And this is Christ. He's the one who has that signet ring of his Father. And the seal is the Holy Spirit. He gives the Holy Spirit to the 144,000, which is about what we're about ready to read here. And he called with a loud voice to the 4 angels who had been given power to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees. So what angels were given the power to harm the earth? Okay, it's not the 4 angels on the earth who are holding back the 4 winds. It's the 4 angels who are standing before the altar of incense, who are standing before God in heaven in Revelation 8. They're given these trumpets to blow, and then hail and fire and a great mountain, burning mountain, goes into the sea, and then wormwood comes and fresh waters are made bitter, and then the 4th angel sounds, and you got a third of the light from heaven not being seen, and there is like this darkness that comes on the earth. Angels that actually have the power to harm the earth and the sea are not the 4 angels who are holding back harm. Okay, they're the 4 angels who are in heaven. So what Christ is doing is he's saying, wait, don't do anything to these guys right here. Don't do anything. Wait until we've sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. Okay, so here's what this looks like then. So according to what we read about the trumpets, we've got Christ on earth, 4 angels. He's saying, don't, they're holding back stuff. Okay, they're holding back things back. But Christ doesn't say anything to those angels on the earth. But what he does is he says to the trumpet angels, don't do anything yet. Don't do anything until I've sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. So the sealing of the servants of God on their foreheads takes place before any of the trumpets are blown. And once the 144,000 are sealed, then there is going to be the first 4 trumpets. Okay, so we have sealing of the 144,000. And then we have trumpets 1 through 4. But what we know is that these trumpets here are going to be blown on the same day that Christ takes the scroll. Believers offer incense on the golden altar. The 24 elders. Okay, so you can see why I had put this big blackboard in my room. It's what's behind this whiteboard now, is I had to take all these clues and put them up so I could see what was happening at the same time as certain things were happening, and what was happening before something or what was happening after something. So where a lot of people want to take, you have to have all the 7 seals and then you have all the trumpets. What we found is that because we can mesh the elders praying for the saints and then an angel coming and adding more incense to those prayers, and then casting the censer, fire from the censer to the earth, and then immediately the 4 trumpet angels do their thing. And we also have already Christ telling those 4 trumpet angels, don't do anything. In other words, there's been a delay. Okay, so Revelation 10 tells us there was a delay in the trumpet sounding. Revelation 10 also tells us that when the 7th trumpet is blown, that everything is over. So basically what happens is The trumpets sort of cover the full timeline from the time we're in heaven until the wrath of God is over and Christ has begun to rule. Okay. The seals are just a list, and we will find out where the seals go because we're going to be able to mesh the seals with other things that happen in the book. So you can see where there's these pieces of the puzzle that have to be connected with one another. And I have done this for you, okay, in my timeline template. I have how the seals are going to unfold and when. I've got the when for you. We know the order. I give you the when. We know when the trumpets are going to be blown, and I'm going to show you when. When in this order of events are these things going to happen? When is the sixth seal? When is the fifth trumpet? When and how are all these things connected with each other? It's in the timeline template. Because it's a template, okay, it works for any group of years. Right now, I haven't corrected this yet, but I put in the if the rapture were to happen in 2022, which it didn't, this is the dates for various things according to a template start date of a certain date, okay? But I have also given you if the rapture takes place in 2023, when all these things happen. Because the timeline in Revelation is perfect and it gives us everything we need to know. And every other event that Paul talks about, that Jesus talks about in Matthew 24 or in Luke 21 or whatever, can all be fit into this timeline. You don't have to have all seven seals, then all seven trumpets, then all seven bowls. That's not how it works. We're given a list, and then we are told where and when we can put them on a timeline. Okay, there are other clues in the book that tell us the when. Okay, all of this is in my Kingdom of Priests, the timeline template. Get a copy of that. You can scratch out the dates for 22 and just put in the ones for 2023, a 2023 rapture. I've listed all the dates there for you. Okay, now I just want to talk about the two witnesses. Okay, the two witnesses were always kind of perplexing to me because I thought we should be able to identify the start date when they come, and that when they come, they're going to have this, there'll be this, huge brouhaha and all these bad things happening, and that's why people hate them. There's going to be 3.5 years of really bad things happening, and people will rejoice that they're dead, and the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit is going to kill them. Okay. So my assumption back when I thought there was a 7-year tribulation, which there isn't, okay, there isn't 7 years of wrath. Okay, please watch my video on the wrath of God. I will give you a link to it in the description box. Also, my Matthew 24 series will show you where the wrath of God begins. Okay, the wrath of God is the day of the Lord. The day of the Lord does not start until the bowls, the sun going dark, moon turning to blood, and all of that is what is the sign that these things, that the wrath of God is about to begin. And we know from Matthew, it's after the abomination of desolation. It's after the tribulation of those days. The sun goes dark, the moon is turned to blood. Okay, that's the sixth seal. It's after the abomination of desolation. The wrath of God begins with the bowls. The sign of it is for people on earth, is the events associated with the sixth seal. The sign for the beginning of the wrath of God for the people in heaven is there's silence. Silence in heaven for half an hour. It's commonly thought that there's going to be, that the 7 years of tribulation are equated with Daniel's 70th week. And so that week has to start with someone confirming a covenant. And I've showed you in other videos that Jesus is the one who came in with the new covenant. Okay, that he confirmed this covenant promise that he'd already made to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, actually even to Adam and Eve back there in the garden after they sinned. There's this promise that God has made. And when Jesus arrived, he confirmed the covenant, and actually he sealed it in his blood. He confirmed that covenant in his blood when he died on the cross. Okay, that's when he caused sacrifice and offering to be put to a rest. He brought an end to them. They had their Sabbath rest. Okay, that's the word for rest they're bringing to an end, is he rested the sacrifices. They're all done now. Okay, that's when he died on the cross. The first 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week is over. The he who confirms the covenant is not the prince of the people who is to come. That was the Romans who came in and destroyed the city and the sanctuary. Okay, the he who confirms the covenant is the Messiah that we read about earlier on in Daniel chapter 9. I'm not going to get into all that right now. Okay, but I used to think there was a 7-year tribulation, but that 7 years of tribulation was equated with Daniel's 70th week. There's only 3.5 years left, and that will start with the abomination of desolation, when the man of sin goes into the temple of God declaring that he's God. Okay, but I also thought that there had to be 2 witnesses that showed up before the midpoint, before the middle of Daniel's 70th week. And aren't they connected with the confirming of the covenant? Well, no, they're not. They don't confirm any covenant. They don't have any connection with Daniel's 70th week. The 2 witnesses are not connected with the first part of Daniel's 70th week. They don't have anything to do with confirming a covenant or none of that. They're not connected with the first part of Daniel's 70th week. And I remember when I'd asked the Lord, well, what about them? Shouldn't we see them? And, blah, blah, blah. And basically the Spirit of God would say to me, look, what the 2 witnesses do is none of your business. Okay, what they are doing for 3.5 years really is none of your business. And so I was like, well, shouldn't we know when they start? And the Lord basically spoke to me and said, no, but you know when they die. You know when they're going to ascend into heaven. I'm like, yeah. Well, work backward. Okay, well, we can work backward from that. Okay, so we know that the 2 witnesses are going to ascend into heaven right here. Second woe. Okay, second woe. The beginning of when Jerusalem will be trampled for 42 months. It's the 42-month reign of the beast and so on. Okay, the 2 witnesses will ascend. Okay, into heaven here. 3.5 days before that, they die. Okay, they'll be raised and ascend here. Okay, this is day 1260 of their ministry. Okay, if you go back 1260 days, you would find the start date. Okay, but we don't know when that is, and it really doesn't have anything to do with us. Why? Why does it not have anything to do with us? Because for this 3.5 years or so, and actually it's about 3 years, and I'm going to say 6 months right here. It's during these 6 months, okay, our rapture is right here. Okay, and I'm not going to explain all of that, but the rapture trumpets 1 through 4, okay, and actually the 5th trumpet plus the 5th, and then the 6th is right there. These trumpets are going to be over the course of 6 months, okay? So we have, so there's a half a year, here for the 2 witnesses, and there's 3 years before that where we don't necessarily see them. And what are they doing? Why does it not matter to us as believers? Because they're ministering to Israel. Okay, their job is to turn the hearts of fathers to the children and children to the fathers. It's the same ministry as John the Baptist. Okay, that was his job, turning the hearts of fathers to the children and children to the fathers, preparing the way of the Lord, so that the Israelites, the Jews, will be ready for Christ. Part of this is ministering to the 144,000. That is, the people are going to come to Christ right here, just before we pass the baton and then we're gone. They're also going to minister, I believe, to the remnant. And they're going to be telling them what the deal is, so that when this happens right here, the remnant can flee for 1,260 days till Christ returns. Okay. Their ministry does not have anything to do with us. Okay. They're given power to speak for God, that is to prophesy, to speak for God, talking to these people about what the Bible says about the days they're living in. So that once the time comes for them to actually believe it and to receive the Holy Spirit, they will be able to make it. They're going to understand what's happening to them during this period of time right here, this very big time of trial that's going to come on them. There isn't any tribulation for the Jews until right here. And this is when we have the great tribulation for the Jews. The book of Revelation talks about another great tribulation, but it's not for the Jews. It's for Christians, okay? There'll be a time of great tribulation. That's the fifth seal martyrs. They'll be taken into heaven before the beast begins to reign. There still will be Christians who are on the earth who will be here, and they will have to endure during the time of the reign of the beast, okay? And then the tribulation of those days will be cut short on a day that nobody knows the day or the hour, and that's when the wrath of God will begin with the bowls. And then we have the seventh trumpet, the beginning of Christ's reign. The kingdoms of this world have become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever. So I'm not going to go into all the clues here. I have a whole timeline template that I've done. I've also done a video where I show you the placement of the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls on a timeline that came from Revelation using the time indicators. There's more than one rapture. Revelation clearly shows that to us symbolically. The 24 elders are in heaven. The 144,000 then are in heaven before the hour of trial that comes on the whole earth. And then those who have to overcome the beast and the number of his name and so on are taken on a day that nobody knows the day or the hour. That's when the tribulation of those days is cut short for believers, that is, those who hold to the testimony of Jesus. I know that this seems really complex, and it is complex, but it's not unknowable. It all can be known. All of this is knowable because you just follow the clues and the timing indicators. And you don't have to be particularly smart. You just have to persevere and go, well, if the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit kills the two witnesses, well, there's several things we will know. One is the two witnesses will already be on earth, and that the fifth trumpet will have already blown. Okay. And we know that the beast who ascends from the bottomless pit is somehow connected with the beast from the sea. All right. So there you go. These are connections that can be made. And delays, we know when the delay is. The delay is for when the trumpets blow. Because Jesus said to those angels who have the power to destroy the earth and the sea and the trees and all of that, don't do anything until we've sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. And then when we read Revelation chapter 5 about the believers offering incense, and then the angel taking more incense and putting it on the golden altar and then throwing this fire to the earth, and that's when the four angels actually begin there to blow. And it's the same day that Christ takes the scroll. It's the same day, I believe, that the first 4 seals are opened. And the 4 angels who are holding back those winds, holding back those spirits, now can let them go on the earth. And these are the seals are things that happen on the earth. They come from the harlot on the earth, and the 4 trumpets originate in heaven. These are angels in heaven who are doing things that have an effect on the earth. Okay, these are all clues, indicators about what's going on, who's doing what and when. All right, this was a longer video than I wanted, but let me just tell you this. If you're looking for a timeline, if you want to know when our rapture is going to happen, okay, the first one right here, kings and priests in the heavenly throne room, it's in the context of Revelation. It's not an isolated event that nobody knows when it's going to be. It's in the context of other events. And if you can sort of figure out when all these events are taking place, you can actually triangulate in when our rapture will take place. And the 144,000 will know when their rapture is going to take place. There's only one we don't know when that's going to happen, and that's the one over here. That happens on a day and hour that nobody knows, because the wrath of God is going to happen on a day and hour that nobody knows. And the wrath of God is connected with the days of Noah, the days of Lot. That'll be over here. All right. Get my timeline template and scratch out the dates for a rapture in 2022 and insert the dates for a rapture in 2023. Okay. And then just follow along. And there are signs that will let us know when this stuff happens. It's the sign of the woman, that is Israel, going into travail. That is a war or invasion of Israel. Satan is going to cast 1/3 of his stars to the earth. That's something that'll be knowable. We'll be able to recognize that here on earth. Satan casting his stars to the earth is not the same thing as Satan and his angels being kicked out of heaven. Okay, that's Michael and his angels casting Satan to the earth. In the case of Satan casting 1/3 of the stars to the earth, he's the one that's taking his stars, his angels, and casting them to the earth. Okay, they're 2 different events. Okay, and they're separated in time. All right, so we're going to see the war in Israel. We will see Satan casting 1/3 of his stars to the earth, and actually then we're going to be born. Okay, when that war ends, we're going to be transformed. Okay, we're going to go from mortal to immortal. We'll have 7 days here that we minister to the 144,000 of Israel, and then we'll be caught up to God and to his throne. That's when we're glorified. We're made immortal first, and we're glorified once we get into God's presence. God is the one who adds glory to us, who glorifies us. Christ is the one who takes us from mortal to immortal. All right, lots of talking there. Those of you who've been following me for a while, things will just be clearer and clearer for you. Those of you who are just landed here on this site, you're not going to know what the heck I'm talking about, except I hope you will grasp the idea here that we're not looking at chronology, that Revelation doesn't start with the beginning and go chronologically to the end. What we're looking at are scenes from a movie, and we're going to connect the dots until we figure out the story. All right, let me know what you think. We'll see you on another video. Till then, have a blessed day.